Welcome to Marvel Maniac, an MCU after show. Today, we're going to be taking a dive into the mystic arts, and we're going to meet one of the cornerstone heroes after this premiere for him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yes, we're talking about Dr. Stephen Strange, and we're going to be discussing the whole first movie and every cameo he has up to the Multiverse of Madness. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We covered WandaVision last week, and we didn't do a long episode on it. It was more of like a revisit, and that kind of just made me really nostalgic for more of that story, where that story was going. All we could wonder at the time of WandaVision was, where is she? What's she going to do with her character next? So Multiverse of Madness will have its own episode next week. However, today we're going into Doctor Strange. We're going to talk a little bit about Thor Ragnarok, Doctor Strange's big role in Infinity War and Endgame. Not too far into that because we got our 100th episode special, which is Infinity War, coming up. And finally, we'll talk about his role in Spider-Man No Way Home and how it leads into the next Multiverse of Madness. But first, I have a special treat, a special returning guest, and we're going to talk a little bit just about the first Doctor Strange movie. I'm going to get his thoughts. I always like hearing what TJ Galooly has to say. So without further ado, let's get right into that.
Hey, Mr. Honest.
Hello, TJ. You know, I'm usually just recording and popping up with the audio the second I get here, right?
I expected it, my friend.
I could tell. Man, it's good to have you back. It's kind of like now I don't have to give you the grand welcome because, like, you're just like, you know, a frequent passerby
Right.
in this house. You know,
Yep.
it's like this house is my house, your house, me, constant type deal. I got a couple questions, unless you got some opening thoughts on the movie.
No, let's dive right into it. I love to start with some questions.
Well, I was wondering, what were your first thoughts after watching it for the first time? And I don't know when that was. Was it in theaters?
Ooh, that's a good question. I actually can't remember specifically. I can tell you the feeling that I had, and it was great. It was, I think the word I would use is humbling.
Yeah. Surprising?
Yeah, I mean, I really felt like grounded after watching it. I felt like, you know, maybe my part in the world is not as big or important as I sometimes see it to be. You know what I mean? Like,
not for you. You're meant for greatness.
No, but I'm saying, like,
I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean.
You know, the little worries and stuff that we have every day are, you know, it's very minor in the grand scheme of things.
So as a route, like, you know, as another reference, like, this is his first movie, but this is also a brand new character into the MCU. How did you kind of like process that? Like, as a new hero, did you have any specific thoughts on him being an Avenger?
Yeah, you know, at the time, you know, probably knew very little about Doctor Strange. I love Benedict Cumberbatch, so I was like, okay, this seems cool. When the movie started, I know it was their intention, but I did not like him. You know, he was so full of himself.
Arrogant Strange.
Exactly. You know, and just all of his interactions with Christine Palmer. You know, she's trying so hard to help him and stuff, and, you know, he's just not wanting to hear it.
He's horrible at the beginning of the movie. He really needs it to be, like, really humbled.
I think that's what makes his arc so fantastic. And I think it's actually, he has probably, in my opinion, a better arc than probably most Marvel characters. I think he's got a better arc than Tony, Thor.
I was going to ask you that. Like, how do you feel about his arc compared to other origins?
I think just because he was, like, actually unlikable in the beginning, you know.
Except when he pulled out his awesome selection of watches.
Right. I mean, he's just, you know, he's funny. He's a playboy. You know, how could you, like, of course he's, like, you know, full of himself too, and he's kind of a dick, but, like, so much more likable. You know, same thing with Thor and, you know, pretty much everyone else. So
big addition to the MCU. What do you think of like the visuals in this movie? It reminded me at the time of the Leo DiCaprio flick, which I should know right now. I can't think of the
Inception.
Yes. Did it remind you of that?
It did not, but now that you say it, I can totally see the parallels.
It's the mirror dimension. It's kind of like Inception. I'm not like criticizing that in the smallest. I love when they go into the mirror dimension and we get all this trippy stuff.
Right. I think that was probably my favorite, maybe my favorite scene, except for probably the ending.
It feels like you have my outline for questions. I'm like, Max's favorite scene, and then you're like, yeah, that would be my favorite one. I love it.
But no, it's so great. I remember being blown away by the CGI. I was like, wow.
Me too.
I feel like, even up to today, I'm like,
it aged.
I feel like
it's not aged.
Really matches it as well. I mean, there are some things that are pretty good, but it is just like a total mind fuck. It's great.
Oh my god, yeah. I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna go over this again once we get off the phone and I do like the rest of the episode and stuff. The first scene I always think of is when the Ancient One is sending him through space and time to, like, I don't know, humble him a little bit.
Right.
That was insane. Do you have like another favorite scene from the movie? Like another like just pops in your head?
Well, I mean, it's got to be the end scene. I mean, like it's a toss up for me. There's two end scenes that I think are absolutely unforgettable, phenomenal. I'll just say them both. So
I know what you're gonna say. I know
before you do. When the Ancient One says, it's not about you. I feel like it's just so profound, and like time is standing still. You see like the raindrops.
It's so beautiful. Yeah,
it's beautiful. And of course, Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
I love that part so much. I love that part so much.
It's just so cool.
That's the climax of the movie right there.
His willingness to sacrifice and his determination. I really feel like it is one of the most unique endings, battles, whatever you want to call it, to any Marvel movie. It's not just some crazy CGI fight. It's like...
It's big. It's better. It's bolder.
Stubborn, and he's willing to literally die for all of eternity, endlessly, to save the world. And it's like... That's what makes his arc so great, is because he's always so concerned about himself and how great he is. That's probably my most standout moment.
Thank you for saying that. As your most standout moment, because we're twinsies on that. But I really did think when they showed Dormammu, like I would think, like, man, I would poop my pants. Like Dormammu is scary. He looks like a third or fourth movie villain, like to end the series, which I bet he'll come back. But like to see him fight that thing, and he was so scary but so cool.
Definitely.
I totally agree with everything you said. What about Caecilius? That was Max Nicholson, I believe. Did you like him in this movie? They were talking about him for Doctor Doom before.
I was going to bring that up.
I got you on that one.
I thought he was really good. He's such a phenomenal actor that maybe he was maybe a little misused.
Yeah, underutilized a little bit.
Exactly. But I really enjoyed him. I mean, he had some great banter with Strange. I know one of the lines was like, I'm going to totally butcher it, but he's like, Doctor, actually. And he's like, oh, Mr. Doctor. And he's like, no, Strange. And he's like, oh, who am I to judge?
That's the only moment. So that's the only time they talk to each other the whole movie, I think. I wanted to, like, let's just decide, like, was it Caecilius who's the main villain or Dormammu in the background? Because he's giving Caecilius and the Zealots life from the Dark Dimension, infinite life. So I don't know who stands as the main villain. Maybe just both of them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would lean towards Dormammu because he kind of, manipulated and influenced him into doing his will because, he had a similar backstory as Strange, just like in a very dark place, basically. And so instead of doing the good thing, he does the bad thing.
I saw this. I thought he's going to have a huge impact on the MCU, and I don't think I was wrong. What do you think about like his impact on the greater MCU, even going forward past what we know, like past Multiverse of Madness? And your closing thoughts on Doctor Strange? Anything else you come to mind from any of the movies that, like, you just want to rave about for a second?
Sure.
Loaded question.
Yeah, a bit of a loaded question, but I'm happy to address it. No, I think I was a little bit surprised that Strange was not more of a core Avenger. I mean, I'm not sure if he even is an Avenger. Is he like Avengers adjacent? Or
if you notice, all the Avenger movies, they literally have to assemble then become the Avengers, except for Age of Ultron. They are not the Avengers in Avengers. They're random people who just met. And in the second one, they're actually Avengers together. But the third one, they're disband. The fourth one, it's been 5 years, and they keep in touch. But it's similar to how they don't really tell you, unless someone can correct me, that Doctor Strange is a Sorcerer Supreme in this movie. Like, no, I don't ever hear it spoken. I just hear it said in Infinity War, you brought yourself to the Sorcerer Supreme. And, like, that's when we knew. I was like, oh, yeah, you know. But that's something I'll get into. I'm ranting over your section.
That's a good question. I'm going to say I think that the previous Sorcerer Supreme basically handed him the mantle.
The dark one? I mean, not the dark one, the ancient one?
When I die, you're going to be the new Sorcerer Supreme. But I feel like it was the natural choice.
It felt like it, yeah. And you know what? It's funny at the end. I totally always thought he was in charge after she passed away. I think it might just be an unwritten, unspoken truth because of how fast he masters things.
It's a great observation. I've never even thought about it.
Yeah, it bothered me because I was trying to build like notes and ideas, and I'm like, all right, I gotta talk about when he actually becomes Sorcerer Supreme. Couldn't find it. I watched it twice. I sat and actively watched this movie 2 times in the last week because I'm like, you know what? I want to make every movie like Infinity War that I've seen 100 times. Like, I want to watch. If I'm going to be talking about this movie, let me go see it again and again and again. But yeah, I think Doctor Strange still has a long way to go in the Marvel movies. I bet he's going to have a big part in the next Avengers, and
they certainly have led him up to that with that post-credit scene from Multiverse of Madness. Seems like he's going to be on some crazy multiverse adventures. So.
Some third eye blind shit.
Exactly.
Because he's got a third eye. Get it? No. Oh man, I don't know why I'm playing awkward radio host today.
I do have a question for you.
Oh yeah.
It's a bit of trivia. So we'll see if your strange knowledge is up to par.
All right.
Do you know who plays Dormammu?
This might be mixing up thoughts from The Hobbit, where Benedict Cumberbatch plays that giant dragon. Something tells me that I may have heard before. I'm not sure. It is actually Benedict Cumberbatch playing Dormammu.
Yes,
it is.
Go. Yes.
Oh, I forgot all about that. That's such good trivia. That is such good trivia, man.
I didn't even know that until I was just doing some research for this, and I was like, wow, that's so cool.
That is insanely cool. It really shows how much Benedict Cumberbatch really sees acting. He wanted to take on roles like that. Right. If you've seen him in that CGI suit for The Hobbit, he looks so engaged.
Amazing.
And
he's like hunched over and pretending to be a dragon. It's insane.
So that leaving us on that trivia was so much fun. I'm about to give you I'm going to rift you, with one of our little orange firecrackly things that are in every Marvel movie now that Doctor Strange makes. Why can't I think of what it's called? The sling ring. I'm slinging you back home because you don't need to go on this whole journey with me. I got this one. It's like the end of Star Fox 64 where I go on to fight the bad guy at the end, and you're going to be like safe up in space, so I know you're okay. I feel like I got a lot out of you, though. I squeezed you like a little sponge.
Yeah, man. It was short but sweet, dude.
Thank you so much, as always, for coming and put your input. Whenever you do, it just fuels me to talk more about this stuff. So I'm excited to have you on soon. The latest we'll see you is our Infinity War episode. That will be level 100. Level 100. Oh, my God. Episode 100.
Episode 100.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if 102 will be Endgame, but I'm close to that because I think by then we can cover like almost everything that was made.
Thanks so much for having me on, and I'm always happy to return.
There we have it, my good friend TJ laying down his thoughts on Doctor Strange. Yeah, Doctor Strange was a big change up, in my opinion, for the MCU, because I think it was the most powerful hero we've been introduced to almost, I believe, at once. Not just that, it's introducing a whole other realm and world of magic that we'd yet to see in the MCU. I mean, we know in Thor that, he says like magic and science, we see them as one and the same. No matter how long or short my talks with TJ are, we get in all the facts. So yeah, I'm going to discuss the first Doctor Strange now, and I may graze over some of the awesome things we talked about with TJ, because they're very key parts of the movie, but we're not going to linger too long. We want to talk about Doctor Strange's real journey, so how he gets to where he is in the Multiverse of Madness by the end of that movie. And that's a couple episodes that we're doing. So I hope you're enjoying. Like TJ said, Strange was so arrogant, especially at the beginning of his movie, of the first Doctor Strange. Very arrogant, and needs very much so to get humbled after a tragic accident. He's a very competent neurosurgeon, and he is actually named Doctor Strange. When I saw it in theaters, I thought that was so clever and funny. It's kind of like Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel. There's a reason behind the name, not just to get you, not just to be a superhero name. Like Doctor Strange, such a superhero name, but that's actually his name. So he just needs the superhero part, actually. He makes the transformation similar to like Iron Man, or not as much like Captain America, but there are a lot of parallels to Doctor Strange and Tony Stark in the MCU. The first thing being their ego, which is going to make for so many fun conversations when we talk Infinity War. That's a nice preview for that. Just to think they're similar people, so they're going to be bumping heads. I think it's not just like Iron Man, but it is enough like he goes through a very traumatic event to become who he ultimately is destined to be. And he sort of got that like rich playboy mentality at the beginning of the movie. It takes a little bit for him to be humbled. There's so much in this movie buried layer under layer under layer, which I believe is kind of representative of Doctor Strange himself. A lot of layers, like not like Shrek, but I guess in ways. He has so many layers. I forget the exact thing they don't say it once up until Multiverse of Madness, but he needs to be the one holding the knife, the pen. I don't know what it is exactly he's holding, but that's the type of personality he is, and I totally buy that. We learn. This is kind of like a parallel line moment, but I actually forgot to put this in my notes, so it's kind of a cool moment. The Marvel show What If, the best episode of that show, I will say to this day, the best episode of that show was What If Doctor Strange lost his heart and not his hands? And we learn in that episode about absolute points in time. Now, I'm 89% sure Marvel is canon on that, even though they're canceling What If. If they start doing things and it's not like it afterwards and start uncanonizing it after they say it's canon, would be kind of upsetting. But I'm going to draw that parallel really quick, as we know that our Doctor Strange is probably the best, like most worthy. I mean, I don't think he can lift Mjolnir, but like I think our Doctor Strange is maybe one of the best morality versions of him in the multiverse. Morality, a man with morals. I know English, I swear. Anyway, I think that episode of What If showcases just if he lost Christine at that point of his life, maybe in that universe he was more in love with her than this one, because in the first movie, he cares about Christine deeply. We learn a lot more about that later in the second movie. But as we say, all canon, he loses her in a car accident, and he keeps trying to go back and back and back with the time stone to fix it. So like this is kind of like right after all the events of the first Doctor Strange, and he ends up becoming a very dark magic user and doing everything he can against the Ancient One's actual warning. He becomes like a demon Doctor Strange, and a way more powerful version than we've ever seen. Maybe one of the most powerful beings in the multiverse yet. And I'm not going to spoil too much of that episode for you, but if you loved this movie, it's a great parallel to it. It's a great companion piece to the original Doctor Strange. Me and TJ were talking a little bit how Inception kind of maybe inspired the visual effects in this one. And that's like in the mirror dimension. And that's the first we heard of the mirror dimension and what we know about the mirror dimension. He visits it a lot. It's used kind of as a battleground. So they don't he'll put someone in the mirror dimension to fight them. Ideally. So there's not like a bunch of damage, like a big battle damage. The visuals actually earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Visual Effects. I don't know what it was up against, but it should have won because it was really good, engaging, head-turning. I seen criticisms about the color scale on all the Marvel movies, and I don't know if I agree with that. I think the Marvel movies are really colorful. Do you have the vivid setting on your TV? It's very easy to get the colors you want just by adjusting some of your TV settings. I'm not even kidding. But before you do that, make sure you know what it. Don't break your TV because of me. Tilda Swinton and Benedict Cumberbatch, great chemistry. I love that the story is as complex. The fact that she is drawing power from the dark dimension, as well as Caecilius, the main villain. And then very early in the movie, he found out Caecilius, he called her a hypocrite. So a lot of his actions explain. Also, Mordo points this out. Mordo, very moral, very big on rules and honesty. He's on the Ancient One's side up until he finds out that she was lying, and that really kind of turned Mordo. And we'll just say this, like, Mordo is being set up in this movie to be his Doctor Strange's main villain, but we don't see him again for a while, and that's in another capacity. The bill comes due, something he repeats a few times towards the end of the movie. One of my favorite aspects of this movie was how cool the Ancient One was, Tilda Swinton. I think she's fantastic. I love how she shows up in Endgame and says Strange was meant to be the best of us, showing that she already knew who he was the first movie and did everything she did because she could see the future. So I love the fight between her and Caecilius. He calls her a hypocrite, but she's doing something, I don't know how, but she's doing it in a different way where she's not as affected by it than he is. She's more or less stealing it from him, and Caecilius is like granted like it from him. So yeah, but the Ancient One, very cool character. The Ancient One doesn't have a whole lot of time to explain what her purpose of drawing infinite life from the dark dimension was, but she tells Steven at the end of her life, she loses to Caecilius in kind of like the pre-end battle. So Strange brings her to the hospital. Even in a dark moment, when he gets to the hospital trying to fix his own wound earlier, he's like, Christine! He's like walking out of a closet, and then it cuts to him with it just shows the sweat stretcher, and we hear him saying, Christine? Like, it was a funny callback, but then we realize, pan up, it's the Ancient One, and she's dying. So him and her and him, Doctor Strange and the Ancient One go to their astral forms. Strange follows her. She said she's seen this image and known that this image that they're seeing outside the window is like the last thing she'll see. But she never knew how exactly she'd get there. And she imparts the wisdom on Doctor Strange that it's not all about him. I think she's such a great mentor character. It's like Obi-Wan vibes in a sense. In the exact opposite way. Obi-Wan to Luke, in a very comical way. Doctor Strange is a lot older, and the mentorship. Actually, she's the ancient one. She's been alive for hundreds of years. She has been using it to fight for the good. She's been putting herself through pain to fight for the good, in my opinion, and save the world. She said, in the window when they're talking at the hospital in astral form, she said she stopped like 4 or 5 like world-ending events type deal, and each one follows another and another. And in Avengers Endgame, we later know that the Ancient One knows from early on that Doctor Strange is coming to be the Sorcerer Supreme. A moment in the movie where I missed or was never said that Doctor Strange becomes Sorcerer Supreme when she dies. It was probably mentioned. It was probably my ADD at both moments I watched the movie. I missed it. Either way, that's what he is in the comics, right? So it's kind of implied once he gets the cape and saves the universe, probably the Sorcerer Supreme. Me and TJ were talking about Dormammu and the importance of that for Doctor Strange's character. He traps Dormammu. I remember when I first saw this, my creative mind was like, wow, like, if you really think about it, Strange could have been there for like 10 to 20 to 100 years doing that. I don't think it took that long. Only because on like the second time, Dormammu was like, what is this? So like, I'd imagine at most, maybe like a full day of that was going on. Because I can't imagine Dormammu giving up like that. But it got, he wins against this giant, disturbingly scary creature using his brain and not his fist, which he doesn't have. He's straight magic. It kind of defines who he is, and it kind of sets him apart from everybody else. And the Dormammu, I've come to bargain, is maybe, if not the most iconic thing he says. I like when he says, Scooby-Doo that shit. But that's later. So we go from Strange being an arrogant neurosurgeon, horrible car crash, seeking answers, finds a guy who used just a tiny bit of magic to let himself walk again after being paralyzed. That sends him to a place called Carmitage. I think I'm saying that right. I might not be. And if I am saying it wrong, you can correct me. MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. So we kind of know that the Time Stone is an Infinity Stone by just looking at it, but it's definitely defined by Wong as you don't want to be walking on the streets with an Infinity Stone before you fully master it. And, it's kind of shown in the movie how fast Doctor Strange picks things up. So you can only imagine by Infinity War how many books, how many lessons, how many spells did this man learn through that, with that stone and just in general. And it looks like he, between movies, really became the Sorcerer Supreme. I remember going in thinking like, oh, Doctor Strange is still kind of new. But that doesn't matter. He's a more powerful character. He aids in every inch of that battle on Titan and Infinity War. So this Time Stone, Infinity War, if you're a fan, is coming. You know about Thanos. And Doctor Strange has a Time Stone, knowing by that he will be a bigger part to play in Infinity War and Endgame. After the epic moment where Strange uses the Time Stone to fix the entire city collapsing on itself because of Caecilius, he repairs it with the Time Stone. Then he flies up to Dormammu, comes back. His deal was to get those zealots out of here, so Caecilius and all his minions were just sucked into the Dark Dimension, and it closed up. And that's not the last we hear about the Dark Dimension. There's a certain post-credit scene to a certain sequel to this movie that sets up more in that area. I don't think that's the last we've seen of Dormammu, but for now, it's the last we see of Dormammu. So the first Doctor Strange, I love it. When I think of it, I think about him with his big beard, his long hair, and the Ancient One pushing him into his astral form, which he later does to Spider-Man at a funny moment. And we experience firsthand. He looks at his hand and like fingers and hands are growing off his fingers. he's traveling through space and time, and it's just showing you the power of the Sorcerer Supreme and how little we actually know about the MCU and how much there is to explore just in that regard. This movie really, really hyped me up. So the post-credit scene of this movie, it is Mordo finding the guy who Strange meets at the beginning to walk again. He was paralyzed. Mordo comes and he takes his power and makes the guy freaking disabled again. What? How do you go from where you were to be doing that? That made me angry. And I don't know if like Strange has been dealing with Mordo in the background between all of the movies that we see him in, or he's yet to have a big part to play in like Doctor Strange 3. We don't see him again up until... Well, we do see him again later. Okay, but it's like I said, it's in a different way. I'm trying to make this episode as spoiler free from Multiverse of Madness, just in case. But mostly, dang, I have an inability of making a decision on that right now. Be warned, there may be spoilers from Multiverse of Madness. No, I'm really trying not to talk about it too much. I want to save the conversation for next week. So that's the first movie. His relationship with Christine doesn't go anywhere, but he wears his watch that she gave him, and it's broken. Still, he wears it, kind of symbolizing the mirror dimension and the broken time, and Doctor Strange looking out his window in the Sanctum Sanctorum and drawing out from that to see the bigger city and how he is here now. And Doctor Strange is like a member of the MCU, right in the heart of things, and that's powerful, followed by the end. It sets up a lot. It gets you thinking a little bit more about possibilities. It makes you wonder, how is he going to fit into all of this? How are they going to bring him in? How is Thanos going to get that? All of these things. Really well done. It's a great standalone movie. Right now, I'd say my favorite heroes in the MCU will be Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange. Right now. That's very, very subject to change. Like 3 weeks ago, it was Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm like a kid in the sense where I'm just so hyped up about the Marvel stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, Iron Man's my favorite. But I gotta say, Iron Man's probably my actual favorite. Forgive me for losing my voice a little bit today. I wonder if it's like all the coffee I've had. I'm a coffee fanatic. It sounds like I'm about to be going into an ad for coffee. If any coffee people want to pay me to talk about their coffee, marvelmaniacpod@gmail.com. So, I did mention that, I wanted to mention that What If episode because it's kind of this alternate timeline, and an absolute point in time the Ancient One explains in that episode is something that can't be changed. He tries to save Christine's life hundreds of times, and she just keeps dying and dying and dying, and the places he goes to get her back in this episode, you have to go watch it if you haven't. It's in season 1. I believe it's like this 4th or 5th episode. I might be wrong. The lengths he'll go to get Christine back is insane. And it makes you see how big of a battery Doctor Strange can be charged up to be in power. Like, he could become even so much more powerful than we've ever seen him. And we get his first cameo in Thor Ragnarok. And that's the post-credit scene, a bit from that, where Doctor Strange fills up Thor's beer. I really like to see these characters interact because they won't have a chance to ever again. So in Thor Ragnarok, which we will be talking about very soon, what do you think? Full episode of Thor Ragnarok or Thor's journey through the MCU? We've talked about 2 Thor movies. I think we might have to do individual episodes for him at this point. We'll figure that out later. But I love the comedic interaction between Thor and Loki. Strange wants to get Loki out of New York because if you remember, not but a few years ago, Loki attacked New York with an alien army. Not many people like Loki on Earth. The fact that we see Thor going to him for help to find his father, kind of like, I don't know, a powerful character like Thor needing Strange's help makes you feel like Strange is extremely powerful. Now, if you haven't seen the Avengers Infinity War Endgame, I advise probably just to shut this off now because I'm going to be going into like Spider-Man No Way Home after that. I just want to say I'm trying not to go too in-depth to these movies because I want them to have really special podcast episodes about them, but you can't change a crisscrossy road where everything intersects. Like, everyone usually has a part or a section in that movie, in those two movies, to warrant a little of discussion of them in their ultimate story, like Doctor Strange. These two movies are incredibly important. The role he plays in Infinity War is pivotal. There we go. Pivotal. He needs to keep the time zone safe. Ebony Maw, scary alien, son of Thanos. I'm assuming they call themselves children of Thanos, sons of Thanos. He is like the Doctor Strange of Thanos' army, and they're basically going toe and toe for like 40% of the movie. It's really cool that Tony Stark saved him, because they're kind of bickering, up until that point in the movie, but they all show up on the ship along with Spider-Man, where Tony didn't want Spider-Man there, but it's the first place that Doctor Strange and Spider-Man meet, so they can maybe have, I don't know, a future crossover movie. So basically, when our heroes, that the side of that are with Doctor Strange, Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Spider-Man, some of the Guardians, it's a whole thing. Doctor Strange, while the team is like kind of making a decision on a game plan, it's some comedic moments between Peter Quill and Iron Man, which you gotta love. Doctor Strange is in the background, just like tripping out, with like green energy floating around him. And once he falls out of it, I think Iron Man's like, "What were you doing? Was everything okay?" He said he saw 14 million possibilities, and there's only one where they win. And that's just crazy. So Doctor Strange knows all the way up through Endgame. He sees. And he sees something significant, because on the ship, on the way to Titan, Doctor Strange is urging Tony to turn the ship around and go back. I don't know why he can't just open a portal to do it, but that is something Doctor Strange wanted Tony to do. No, Tony wanted to intercept him on Titan. And Doctor Strange said, if you were the kid, are about to die and I need to save the stone, like, basically it's going to be the stone. I'm ultimately going to guard the stone. But he had these visions, and the one where they win, and they almost got that gauntlet off of Thanos. That all had to happen for them to get where they were going. You're so mad at Peter Quill for a moment. It's a heartbreaking moment. Thanos goes crazy, and we get to see some of Doctor Strange's crazy new abilities and how he goes toe to toe with the Mad Titan. The moment where Doctor Strange and him and freaking Thanos are going at it, and Thanos throws like a freaking black hole at Doctor Strange, and then another moment, Doctor Strange turns the move that Thanos uses. He turns everything into butterflies. It's his biggest challenge, fighting Doctor Strange. And they have a decent plan at the beginning. It's just Thanos is too strong. So in the end, Doctor Strange is about to witness Tony Stark get murdered. If he has flash forwards to Endgame, he can't let that happen. So naturally, he says, if you let him live and spare his life, I'll give you the stone. No tricks. Him and Thanos. Very slowly, very cinematically, Strange takes the stone out, and he guides it to Thanos, and Thanos grabs it, puts it in his gauntlet, and he's got one more. He leaves. One huge thing that Doctor Strange says after he does that is it had to be done. It was the only way. We're in the end game now. I think two different moments there. I think they cut back to him saying like it was the only way. But he says we're in the end game now. So such a new, key, powerful character needed to get snapped away. We lost some powerhouses to the snap. And we'll talk more about that when we get to Infinity War. It sounds like a giant promotion for my 100th episode. I really want to get there, guys. It'll mean a lot to me. The small or big or, whoever audience is here with me, so grateful to have you. Thank you for being here. Little dream of mine to just be talking on a mic about my world that I escaped to. That's really not just mine, it's ours. And it's a great way of bringing people together, these movies. It's a cinematic adventure. Strange comes back. All the events of Endgame happen. So the snap happens in Infinity War, and the re-snap by Hulk to bring everyone back comes in clutch just at the right moment. Captain America's about to like die against an army of thousands, and we see the Doctor Strange portals, and we get the most iconic movie, Avenger movie moment on this portal scene. From the music to the arrivals of the heroes, Doctor Strange shows back up. He fights a little bit in the battle. We don't see too much of him, except for the part where him and Ebony Maw going at it again, creates like a tornado of water out of the lake. So like Doctor Strange is literally pushing off a tornado of water in the background if you're like looking for it. But then Tony Stark, near the end, he says, you said we got 1 in 14 million. Is this it? And he says, if I tell you how this is going to end, it won't happen. And, oh my God, that moment where Tony takes the stones and he looks over at Doctor Strange and with his trembling hand, he's holding up the 1. And Tony knew to snap. Oh! I just love these movies. No, Doctor Strange. He sacrificed, like in a way, like he's the one who sacrificed Tony Stark, but it was the only way. And he knows that Stark is the one to make the hero play. He would absolutely give his life to save the entire universe. If he didn't wipe out Thanos' army, if Thanos just got the gauntlet, everything, the whole universe would have been over. Because this Thanos made a promise to the Avengers that, like, hey, I'm gonna delete your whole universe and start fresh. Again, we'll get to Endgame. We'll talk about it for a good amount of time. I also have an episode, if you want to go back, and it's from my other podcast that I'm not doing anymore. It's called Mr. Honest, but it's in this episode. I mean, it's in this show's history. It's like a reaction to Endgame right after we got out of the theaters, or like a week after or something like that. And I have like 5 people. We're just sitting there just talking about our immediate reactions. I'm sorry for saying Thor was fat so often. I like Big Thor. I respect that move. Now, another trilogy and character story that we're going to just have so much fun diving into, and I'm going to have to figure out how I want to cover these because I love all the home movies, the home trilogy. I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and I really like every movie he's been a part of. So we might have to do individuals, which is really fun. So that's just something to look forward to. Spider-Man No Way Home was a very ambitious movie that could have failed. However, it worked. And they needed a vehicle, someone to guide them into the multiverse this early. And they needed a reason big enough. And it couldn't have culminated better. Mysterio revealing Peter's identity changed everything for him. And Doctor Strange, the minute Peter goes to him for help, I mean, it takes a little bit for him to realize, I know a wizard who can bend space and time. Maybe he can help me with this. And by the time he gets to Doctor Strange is like very sympathetic towards Peter, and he also says like, we saved the universe together. You don't have to call me sir. Later, after Peter messes everything up by accident, he does start asking him to call him sir. So he's like a mentor figure to start in this movie, but then when they go downstairs to do this spell to get everyone in the world to forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man totally like just messes everything up for him, and we find out on the bridge in New York where the Green Goblin held Mary Jane up in the original Spider-Man series. I'm pretty sure that's where it is. And I think it's the Brooklyn Bridge. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I've only been to New York twice. I love the city. I love New York. But that moment happens to reveal that they broke the multiverse in a way where everyone who has ever known Peter Parker, Spider-Man, is coming to this universe, and Strange contained the spell, and he just has to get everyone back to his dungeon, the wizard dungeon, as they say. Mary Jane and Ned. Great comedic relief in that movie. I'm trying to say, it's so hard not to talk about big moments of that movie without it. I'm trying to talk about Doctor Strange's role, because this really does lead into Multiverse of Madness in a way, because Peter wants to get these villains fixed and sent back so they can live and not guaranteed die to Spider-Man. So him and Strange are at ends, and then Peter takes the device from Strange, Strange, what does he do? We get the mirror dimension again. He brings Peter in there, and they have a very serious conversation where he's trying to explain to Peter how complicated the multiverse is, and that this could basically destroy their whole reality. But Peter believes he can help them. So they have this really cool moment on the train, and it's literally the type of action that we were getting in the first Doctor Strange, which I love. He does this thing where he like puts the train in a circle around them. But when Spider-Man realizes that the mirror dimension is all about geometry, boy genius, Underoos takes down Doctor Strange by just using geography and... Did I say geography? Geometry. Yeah. I'm a smart human. I need the Mind Stone, please. But I will not take it. I will only accept it if Vision, wants to give it to me, and we'll fix him so he doesn't need it. Let's just talk. We'll talk about that later. I'll get a Mind Stone. Okay, guys? Okay. So he's locked up in there most of the movie. Pretty much all the rest of the movie up until the end. Where Peter... to the best of his abilities, he did help most of the heroes. We got to see the other Spider-Men. We'll talk about all that later. Strange does finally show up at the end, and he is trying to hold back all the different Spider-Man villains from entering their multiverse. And in the end, Peter wins. Strange has to perform the spell in a certain way, so everyone forgets who Peter Parker is, not Spider-Man. So he has to do a spell on Peter Parker. And I personally think that Doctor Strange let himself remember Peter. And I think everyone in the world still remembers Spider-Man. They just don't know who Peter is. So nobody knows who Peter is. So he does a spell that Peter agrees to because he's a selfless hero that everyone will forget him, including his girlfriend, his best friend. And from there truly is no way home. Get it? Obviously, that's what they mean by it. But I loved that movie. And I love Doctor Strange's incorporation into it. It makes you see the most modern Marvel and the most classic Marvel all in one big bunch. That movie was something special. And Doctor Strange always brings something magical. And, he's literally a magician. He always brings just a bang to the movies he's in. Benedict Cumberbatch and Wong, I don't know his name, and I'm not IMDbing it right now, but they deserve awards for these roles. We see Strange's stance on the multiverse when he's saying in the ultimate equation in the multiverse, their existence, the grand calculus, it doesn't matter. He says pretty much, right? He pretty much says that. So we are getting a kind of intro to Multiverse of Madness here, and that movie from this point is coming out in like 5 months, so there's a lot of Doctor Strange in phase 4 of the MCU. At this point, we've been in phase 4 for a little while, so it's kind of exciting to see where a movie titled The Multiverse of Madness will take us. And we know Wanda's going to be in it. We don't know her role yet, as viewers just seeing Spider-Man No Way Home. However, we can get a hint that maybe she's not all sunshine and daisies. She may be kind of a bad guy now. We're going to talk all about that next week on Marvel Maniac and MCU After Show. We'll talk about all the fallout of what happened in No Way Home and what led into the events of Multiverse of Madness. And that movie goes a lot of places, and it explains a lot, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys about it next week. Doctor Strange, I easily said he's in my top 3 heroes. I only put him in 3 because it's just undeniably Iron Man and undeniably Spider-Man before. It was hard not to talk more about Spider-Man No Way Home. We're going to revisit that. I did my reaction. You can go back and listen to it the night I saw it. But it's not nearly as good as if I watch it and then talk to you right after on a mic. After I've calmed down a little bit and all the crowd cheering is done, just to talk about that movie. But we're going to be making episodes week to week. The next episode you're going to hear is the episodes 1 and 2 of Agatha All Along. let's hope that it's a fun show. I really want to make and they're going to be coming Wednesdays. So the day of release, usually probably later that night. I'm not going to stay up till 2 a.m., wait for it, and give you a half-ass show. I'm going to sleep, wake up, watch it, record it. Letting you in a little bit of my creative process. It's going to be a great time. We got a lot ahead of us at Marvel Maniac. I have so many ideas on episodes, from covering trilogies and series, all the way to just one Marvel movie at a time. We do what we feel to keep it fresh, exciting, and fun. MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. If you have any episode requests, any feedback, try and stay positive. I'm a sensitive guy. I do what I can. I'm learning every day, every episode. I love doing this podcast, and I know I've been gone for periods of times, but I'm going to stay this time for now. I want to get a lot done. I want to cover a lot. I want to feel like I talked about everything I wanted to. And to be back in this flow, couldn't be happier. Thank you, audience. Thank you, special human right now listening, wherever you are in space and time, in the multiverse. I salute you. I thank you. And we'll see you next week. And until then, Avengers, disassemble.